Yeah. So, can you? I guess you can sort of tag team this one, but can you tell the story of how you guys met?
So I think the way that it all unfolded was one of my very early angel investors introduced me to Brandon, and then had an initial conversation with him. Was like no conversation I've ever had before, and was super intrigued. And so, he introduced me to Jarrid, and then from there, kind of went through the full pitch journey and met the whole team and did the diligence thing. I don't know. That's how it unfolded from my end, Jarrid.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty spot on. I mean, my introduction to the deal was Brandon was hype about Wagmo, and I was like, "What is this?" And I tend to like block things out until I have to focus on them. And he's like, "No, you really got to get on." So we're in the midst of fundraising. I'm literally like walking down like Fifth Ave or something after a meeting, and I didn't have time to get to the office for a call. So my first introduction, I'm on the phone walking in the middle of the street, can barely hear Christie, but I'm like, "Wait, this person's really strong. All her answers are spot on, and it sounds like this is a quick moving deal, so we got to get back to the office and get to work." And I remember us only having like some absurd like short period of time, faster than we've ever closed a deal, but I knew we had to move pretty quickly, and Christy's really good at making people move forward. So that was my first introduction to Christy and Wagmo.
That's so fun. That sounds like such a quintessential like New York introduction. You're hustling from one place to the other, trying to make deals. So that's awesome that you guys are able to connect in that way. So Christy, at what point did Wagmo go from being an idea to reality? I read a few stories. It sounded like, a lot of really cool startup ideas start as problems, like a personal problem that becomes, you realize, oh, okay, other people have this problem like me. So would love to know how Wagmo turned from an idea to what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, there was like the catalyzing moment was when my dog was having a seizure on the floor of this emergency vet hospital. And before the vet would take him back, I had to pay a deposit, like a couple $1,000 deposit, and sign a piece of paper saying that I could pay the bill. And that like super painful, tense moment of having to think about, can I actually afford to get him the care that he needs, was sort of the pain that instilled in me the fire to start this. And from there, I like threw up a Squarespace page and, put a product out there that I wish existed. I remember Googling like wellness plans for pets and trying to see if there was something out there that would fit the specific gap that we were trying to fill initially. And there wasn't. So I put a page up with very little plan as to how I would take it from there. And people started signing up. And from there I realized, okay, this is actually turning into something. Better get a plan in place and actually turn this into some sort of like scalable and sustainable model. And from there it was kind of just running and sprinting ever since.
That's super awesome. Yeah, that's great.
And I would love for Kristen to talk about like the founder market fit. She's being humble there, but like the fact that she has spent a lot of time in insurance and we're passionate about this, I think all helped you kind of be even able to do this.
Yeah, so I guess I'm one of like very few people out there that genuinely loves insurance. I spent the first 6.5 years of my career working with insurance companies at BlackRock. Ended up working with insurance companies just sort of out of the blue, really didn't know what I was getting myself into, and then realized that it's a fascinating model. I love the industry and wanted to do something in insurance. So I was actually in business school trying to figure out what exactly in insurance I wanted to do. And I feel like you'll appreciate this tidbit. I was initially thinking I was going to go into private equity for insurance. And I went to one private equity info session at HBS. It's like, these people are the worst. I can't do it. I can't do any more like New York finance. I did it for six-ish years, and that was quite enough. And so kind of went back to the drawing board and was working on another tangentially related insurance startup idea when my dog got sick, and sort of all the stars kind of aligned, and turned out the market opportunity was tremendous right at that specific moment. And so just sort of went for it.
That's really awesome. I mean, I feel like a lot of people feel that way about private equity people, but it's so cool that, it's kind of kismet that, you had all this industry experience, and then you sort of had a personal problem where you couldn't see a fit between the two, and now it's like part passion project, but you're also using a lot of the skills that you learned. And I think that's what makes the best founders. I think of someone like Katrina Lake of Stitch Fix, right, where she's like, I can't find clothes, I have all this business acumen, you put them together. So Jarrid, I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you more about how you got into venture. Again, I mentioned earlier everyone in the Harlem Capital team is just so cool. So I'd love to hear your story and how you're in that space now.
Thank you. Well, our path to VC was non-traditional, but I mean, I guess there really is no traditional path to VC. So I guess how we started is Henri and I, the other managing partner, we were both working at a Black-owned private equity firm called ICD Partners. Had a fantastic experience there. Loved being at a small organization. Loved being at a diverse organization. So we were happy, loving our jobs. This was our third year out after college. And we realized pretty quickly that we loved investing, but when we looked at everything, we just wanted to do it for ourselves. As an associate, you don't have carry, you don't have co-invest at this firm. And we just wanted to like build something, and we had some downtime. And so we eventually decided, let's angel invest. We love what's happening in tech right now. We want to participate in it. We want to learn by doing, and let's just use our time wisely. So we actually started an angel syndicate in New York with a couple friends. We just all committed $10K each, wanted to invest in originally small businesses, real estate, startups, like literally everything. And eventually we found out that most of our deal flow was coming from startups, and that this was the best model because of the unit economics, and just didn't work with other things. You could actually potentially make a really significant liquidity event if you were doing VC. And then as we got our brand, got our name, we realized that there was even a greater need, as there were just so few investors of color and women investors. And there was definitely a need because we were meeting a whole bunch of founders that were very qualified, had great businesses, but were having a tough time getting funding. And the last thing I'll say is that ICV, even though it's a diverse owned firm, none of the companies we invested in had diverse CEOs. And you see this transformational economic power engine of private equity where people can make, tens of millions of dollars on a transaction, and we're not participating. We had one woman CEO during the whole time at ICV, and then she got fired shortly after we left. So we're like, hey, this is not okay. And if we actually do want to be the change that we want to see, let's start upstream and let's help people create wealth, hire folks, and reinvest in their communities. So that was the catalyst for Harlem Capital. We're mission driven. Fast forward, we do 6 angel deals in startups in 2.5 years. Henri and I also go to business school, the same business school as Christie in Boston. We can leave the name out.
I'm gonna take a wild guess. Heard some town in Cambridge has one of those. Yeah. Casual.
Yeah. So I was recruited for private equity because I still was drinking a Kool-Aid. I don't come from money, and so it was important to me to have that visibility. I didn't get the one job that I wanted at the top firm, who actually ended up being a major partner of us now, but didn't get that job. At the same time, Harlem Capital was getting more buzz, and so that's how I made the decision. Henri, he wanted to do VC, is looking at the team pages. Everyone looks the same. He's like, I can't go back to this because I know what it's like to be, fairly treated and feel comfortable. So we put our heads together, and instead of doing an internship after our first year, we tried to raise a fund. And it was hard, and we're actually going to put out a blog post about how hard it was, but we were able to meet the right people, use the New York connections, and finally get momentum going, get good advisors, and kind of build something special. So fast forward, we started fundraising in June 2018, ended up raising a $40 million fund that closed in November of 2019. Christie took a bet on us before our fund was closed, but saw the vision, obviously, and now we're off to the races. So it's 2 partners, 1 venture partner, 2 associates, 2 senior associates rather, and we've already made 17 investments. So we're on a tear right now.
That's amazing. And also I love that you mentioned that Christie also took a bet on you, because I feel like, conventionally it's like the VC firm is taking a risk investing in a founder, but obviously, again, going back to that equity thing where both parties are just as engaged in understanding the value of the relationship. So this is a perfect segue to my next question, where I think partnerships like yours are super exciting because you're representing two minority groups that, you know, venture typically overlooks or has typically, you know, over mentored, underfunded. Have there been any lessons that you've learned in your relationship that are sort of inspired you to see how venture can change or venture can be a more diverse place?
From my standpoint, I think like the biggest thing that I no longer take for granted, and that I hope nobody else takes for granted, is being able to sit across from the table from someone who genuinely respects you and has your best interest in mind. I think, you know, when you start pitching VC funds, particularly as a woman, and especially in a woman starting an insurance company, you meet a lot of fairly terrible folks, and, you know, being able to have a conversation and genuinely connect with somebody and trust what they're saying and not have to second guess and sort of read between the lines is so productive and so refreshing. And, you know, I don't know if it's attributable to the fact that we're both coming from like underrepresented situations here, or if there's just like a genuine sort of connection. But, you know, for me, I think that should be the norm. Like, you should be able to have a very open, candid conversation with your investor, or with your potential investor, and not have to worry that they're trying to manipulate you or game you or you know, undervalue you. Like that, those thoughts never crossed my mind once, and that's something like I do not take for granted at all.
That's a great answer. Jarrid, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I'll say by the time we met Christie, we're already bought into the fact that women and people of color can be fantastic entrepreneurs. So that was easy for us. There was no adjustment needed. But Christie was tremendous. She really, she's very confident, and just the way she managed her fundraising process, I just had to respect. She's like, hey, you guys have a couple of weeks. We're closing on a safe, like same day you commit. I want the money in my bank. We're trying to do this before 4th of July. And like literally we had so much stuff going on. Like, I mentioned at the start of the process, I was fundraising in New York. Towards the end of the process, we were in LA for like 2 big meetings, still meeting investors. We literally had our partner meeting in a small room off to the side in a hotel before another dinner. Like, we were really trying to get this deal done, had to like really move heaven and earth to like meet her timing. But like, that's, you know, what she did. I just respect her confidence level. Actually, she did mention during the pitch around how, you know, she's in the industry where there's very few women at all. And, you know, people were asking like, hey, do you have anyone with like gray hair on your team, you know, trying to read between the lines. And, you know, I just had so much respect for her tackling all that she has to tackle normally, plus add an industry component. It just has not been conducive to diversity at all. So I respected those 2 things a lot. And I guess the last thing I kind of learned from her after the process as well. But just hearing about how her investor meetings went were helpful. And then, so we actually invested in Wagmo. I guess technically it was a safe, so a pre-seed round. We co-led the seed round with another VC firm that we respect highly and brought in. And one thing I saw Christie doing in that whole process when she was talking to firms was doing partner level diligence. So not even just looking at the firm, but like, who is a person I'm going to be working with? And being a VC, that was very helpful to me because it basically showed me, hey, like, it's not only the firm, it's also how do people's interactions with us individually matter? And are we having consistent culture? Like, yeah, we're going to have some different style stuff, but are we all representing the brand? And it just made me so much more in tune with how founders look at the world and helped me be a better investor as a result.
I think you have a question in here about, you know, why we ended up working with Harlem Capital, but to sort of preempt that, one of my HBS professors, like, I can't remember who it was at this point, and Jarrid, maybe you had the same class, but there was some conversation we had that was like, you have to be really deliberate about who you bring with you on your journey, and perhaps more candidly, like, who do you want to make rich at the end of the day? And that like voice is always in the back of my head as I think about like the people that I'm going to be working with. I mean, I'm a first-time founder, so I knew that this was going to be like a particularly challenging journey, and I didn't want to be working alongside people who I couldn't trust or who I felt were judging me or were going to sort of take control when I actually knew what I was doing. And, again, being a woman in an industry like insurance, you meet a lot of people who think that they know better than you. And, being able to work with somebody who genuinely trusts that you actually know what you're doing and that you can handle this is rare, and something that we saw very clearly in Harlem Capital. I mean, even the way that they just approached their deal diligence, like, it was far more thoughtful than the average, I'd say, like, investment process that I'd gone through, especially like at that early stage. Like, they genuinely took the time to get to know me and my company, and even my team. So it was more than just like riding a trend or more than just me like creating FOMO, right? Like, I genuinely felt that they were excited about this deal and excited about me. And that, like, that's the way you want to start like a long-term relationship, if you will, right? Not because like they had to get in at the last moment because it was FOMO. It was like a meaningful investment, I think, on both parts.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. I think you guys have kind of, we'll just ask that question now. I think that was a great answer. So Jarrid, like, obviously that was really interesting as I was researching more about Wagmo and Harlem Capital. The round was oversubscribed. Like, there literally you had to turn some people away, I'm assuming. So I guess, Christie, you just answered that question perfectly, where it's like there was something special about that school in Cambridge that, enticed you to work with Jarrid and his team. So Jarrid, like, what, again, made you excited about being like one of the lead investors, and sort of having a company like Wagmo and a founder like Christie in your portfolio?
Yeah, everything lined up. So we raised a fund that was bigger than our target. So we had more capital and wanted to find a way to support Wagmo in a meaningful way and also participate in a more meaningful ownership position. So that was, kind of table stakes. Christie crushed it between when we invested the first time and when we invested the second time. I mean, I guess we invested in July and then our second investment was in November. So it was pretty quick. And I had to convince the team that we should invest again this quickly, but she had been tracking very well. She had been growing her wellness product very nicely, built out her team. I love the fact that she built out a diverse team without having anyone ask her to. She was making great progress on rolling out their insurance product, which I think was a key question for, some investors as well as later stage investors. And so everything she said she was going to do, she did. I loved how she brought us into the process early and so said, hey, we're thinking about raising another round. What do you guys think? It was very collaborative around like how much she was raising, what the valuation would be, like really taking that feedback and consideration and then thinking about the best way to go forward. So we actually put out a term sheet before she started her process. And it was like, hey, like, we want to support you. We're already investors. Let's do it. And so if you find a better deal, great. Want to do what's best for you. But we're here to support you. We have folks we think that are in mind. And we ended up bringing, plus our check, we brought another, 1.25 million to the round. So that's just like, we brought our own money. We brought that, it was a little under 2 million all told. But Christie had the ability to go out and get kind of money from whoever, but chose to let us and our partners participate in a meaningful way. So all that kind of really was why we're excited, as well as the market, right? Pet insurance, pet wellness is still very underpenetrated. You're seeing much higher penetration in Europe versus US. It's a growing market. Baby boomers, millennials, everyone's getting pets at a higher rate. They see that connection, especially on the coast. And we also just saw a lot of potential ways it could unlock value and create a really meaningful scale company. So got very excited about the prospects and continue to be excited about Wagmo.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So Christie, I know, there's a famous adage in the VC world where a lot of VCs will say, let me know how I can be helpful. we know how much tea or how much, emotions that can and get out of people. So I would love to know, like, how has Jarrid been helpful in supporting you through your founder journey? If there's like 2 or 3 specific things that you found.
Yeah, so generally speaking, I'd say Jarrid's like the perfect level of accessible and helpful without getting in the way, which is just exactly what you want as a founder. We literally text message, so he's like always available. And there have been times when we've been like texting like late into the evening or very early in the mornings. Like, he really will hustle and work for his founders, which is is wonderful. Specifically, I mean, he's helped with everything from like, you know, sometimes we need him to get in the weeds on a financial model, and he'll like sit down with us and literally like go through Excel formulas in a small conference room, or, you know, thinking through deal dynamics when we were raising our seed. Even, you know, reviewed the deck that I went out to market with on my seed raise and said, hey, you know, this slide is going to be perceived differently than you think it is from investors. Like, you might want to consider changing the language. Like, it's always very like tactical, actionable help, not just sort of, you know, saying things and giving advice just for the sake of it, which is like a much more productive use of everybody's time. They're also super helpful, you know, anytime I've got like a job opening or news we want to get out or an event we want to promote, like always very willing to use their platform and their network to spread the word, which was honestly was something very unique that Harlem Capital could bring us that a traditional VC fund couldn't. So that was something we actually were specifically excited about working with them, you know, for. So that's definitely been useful as well. And then like on a more strategic level, you know, just kind of as a sounding board, you know, we have a very open line of communication. So if like a one-off opportunity comes up or a one-off challenge comes up, I can call Jarrid or text him or send him an email and say, hey, can we like talk this through? I have an idea I want to run by you. And, you know, it's not like we have to like schedule a meeting 2 weeks from now and wait for the board meeting. Like I mean, he really is just sort of there along the way in the journey, which is super efficient and has been like really helpful on a day-to-day basis.
That's so exciting. So Jarrid, just flipping the question a little bit. Again, what are some of the, I guess more you can pertain this specifically to Christie, but what are some of the best or insightful asks that you've received from founders? Because I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of my founder friends that I talk to, like, I don't know what to ask, but I know I should ask something. Yeah. So what has that been like on your end?
Yeah, I mean, we position our value add as 3 buckets. One is fundraising help. So we have a very strong network of other VCs as well as very high net worth individuals. And so we can kind of slot in whoever you want for your round. And it's interesting because we are generalists, but somehow we're just connected and we get increasingly connected. And so we're able to help our founders get capital, but not just capital, but also the capital that they want as a fit for their round. Because you just don't want anyone in your round. You want that expertise and that culture fit. The second is financial analysis. Coming from banking and private equity, we're able to dig in cash flow analysis, projections, M&A or JV if it's relevant, and just being there for founders in a way that could be helpful, especially because financial functions are usually something that early stage startups don't have, even if the founders have that capacity since they have worked in insurance before. I mean, the last thing is our media platform, right? We have 330,000 followers across our various platforms, so we can get the word out. We're also very good at telling our own stories, and we've kind of cracked that code. So always want to leverage that as much as possible. So those are our buckets. I think the founders that do the best are people that just ask us in our areas of expertise. We are generally available. We're young. We're under 30. So we're around. We work hard. We're always up, right? So I think folks that really tap into that and kind of use that are great. So Christie's been doing it. I mean, I think she's, tapped into almost all those 3 buckets, as I mentioned. She's also been helpful to us, right? Like getting in a hot deal, letting us lead, being advocates for us, doing references is great. We had our annual meeting with our LPs, our first one in March, which was going to be virtual anyway. But people blinked less because of COVID, and Christie, got on and talked in front of our institutional investors and sold them. It's like, hey, like, this is why they're great to work with. This is what I'm doing. And whenever that happens, people's confidence in you just gets elevated. So we're continually helping each other. I think Christie's done a great job. And we want to make sure our help is appropriate for the level the company is at. And so I think PR and marketing are great opportunities for Wagmo. They have a great product, great brand. I think we just need the world to know about it. And there were strategic reasons to wait to do a huge blast because they were launching this insurance product, which is now catching on. And so now is the time, right? That's why we're on today. That's why we're going to do more pushes. So we brought a PR agency that hopefully will do some pro bono work. We're kind of bringing in our whole toolkit. I don't know, Chris, if you saw a cash drop announcement, but we were able to get so much buzz on that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely want to use the whole HCP marketing engine for Wagmo and think that'll be a huge area. but now is the right time to do it because the company's gotten through those kind of hoops they wanted to get to before they started, heavily blasting.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it's like the marshmallow test. It's like the psychological experiment where you get a kid to wait for a marshmallow. So I think it's very much like waiting for the second marshmallow. Where I think in tech, there's very much this draw of like, the second you get out of stealth mode, it's go, 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 go without much product validation. So I think being intentional, especially I think as underrepresented founders, like you want to be very cognizant of how the market unfortunately isn't always in your favor, but I think when you're more cognizant, you kind of make a better, it's like a hard burden where it's like you want to make you want to do it right, but then also doing it right kind of makes it better for everyone else that comes along and follows you along as other female founders or other Black founders are in their journey. So that's
plus there's only so many hours in the day, like you have to focus, right?
Yeah.
And Christie's phenomenal at focusing and prioritizing, and like you can't do it all. You want to do what you're doing well, and I think the way she's approached everything has been great. So we always trusted her, but she's only just proven that her plan made sense, and we're all benefiting from that.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly, I'm learning so much just from the two of you, so I'm really excited. I think this will definitely be really awesome for our readership and people in the tech community to get a better understanding of. So would love to know what is motivating you these days. I know it's a really tough time. I know all of us are struggling to some extent, but I would love to know how each of you are getting through things.
On my end, it's honestly my customers. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, I got off the phone with a customer who has been an early Wagmo customer since like the very early days on the wellness plan. And she has a service dog who keeps her healthy. So it's super important for her to keep her dog healthy. And she got on the phone with me to do a customer interview and just was so effusive and grateful as to how Wagmo has helped her navigate taking care of her pet. And she was so excited that we'd released insurance. I mean, she was telling me that she'd actually like put off buying insurance from another company just because she heard Wagmo was coming out with it. And so she waited longer than she wanted to just so that she could sign up with Wagmo. And those are the moments that make like the whole journey and the whole roller coaster totally worth it. She has her 80-year-old father whose dog is also on a wellness plan, and they talk about it at dog parks together, like with their dog park friends. Like those kind of moments, hearing that like all of the fires that you have to put out on a daily basis and all of the like ups and downs at the end of the day are actually amounting to a product that's helping people in like a very meaningful way and in a way that I can personally really relate to is so rewarding. And like we've had the benefit of seeing that kind of play out with the wellness plan over the past year, but now that insurance is live, that's sort of like this huge milestone in the company's lifetime, and seeing that story is now playing out in exactly how we wanted it to play out is like all of the motivation that I need, truly, because that's why we built this, is to actually help people, and it's working.
That's so
I love
awesome.
that answer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think what you find out pretty quickly in entrepreneurship is like, yeah, there's some upside out there, but like it's far out, right? It's really like the people, the customers, the mission that keep you going through the ups and downs and the highs and lows. If you're in it for the money, you're in the wrong industry, because it's not going to be enough to keep you motivated over to sustain, 7 to 10 year period or however long it takes.
Yeah, that's super awesome. But Jarrid, I mean, what's getting you through the day to day? I mean, you said you're young, you don't sleep, obviously. So something has to be turning those gears.
Yeah. To the point, like it's the mission, right? Like as I started to allude to before, we're focused on empowering women or diverse entrepreneurs. We want to invest in 1,000 diverse founders over the next 20 years. Like that's our mission. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us excited. Right. And so it's really that helps us get through all the highs and lows I was mentioning for Christie's answer. So I guess more specifically, though, we want to build the ecosystem. We want to get capital in the hands of these entrepreneurs. We want to create more diverse investors, and that keeps us going. So on the founder side, we love talking to them. It's always energizing. You're literally partnering with people and helping them make their dreams come true, right? Like what better job to be doing that, especially with people that you want to work with, within your own team. And on the other side, We're highlighting diverse folks that haven't got the proper recognition. We're also helping diverse investors enter the ecosystem, because that's honestly one of the roots of the problem, especially because VC is so subjective, right? So we had an intern program. We have an intern program that's robust. We've had 46 interns already. That's out of 2,800 applicants, and we have an intern class 3 or 4 times a year. So that's spread out over 8 classes. But before our fall class, we had 1,400 applicants, took 6 folks. These can be seniors in college, juniors in college. They can be MBAs. They can be folks that are working full-time, want to work with us part-time because it's part-time, it's remote, our internship. And just seeing those people who are already smart, already capable, crushing life, but just haven't had someone take a chance and give them that experience that they need, even if it's just 10 weeks part-time. We've literally seen it open doors. So now we have interns that are working at top investment firms, folks at KKR, TH Lee on the buyout side. On the VC side, Female Founders Fund, another investor, Christie, Lara Hippo as an intern, right? Like, we're making waves, and people have always said, oh, where's the talent? It's like, the talent is right here. You're not looking in the right place, but that's fine. Talk to us. We got you, because we're already doing the screens, and we're actually working on a talent platform that will help connect VCs and, new up-and-coming talent very easily. So that's what keeps us going. It's nice to get the recognition, but ultimately it's about those founders and those future investors that keeps excited through everything we have to go through.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. That I think the other thing too is, again, VC is very self-serving. Like, you want to be the first on the deal. You want to be the first to meet the founder. So it's really inspiring that, your company, it's almost selfless in a way, because I think Harlem Capital could just, take all the Black and POC, investors or people interested in VC away from these companies, further like ruining the pipeline for them. But I think, it's also more about making the ecosystem more diverse and really showing that, okay, yes, you're showing sort of like different MVPs. Like, yes, you're investing in other great founders, but you are also transforming the ecosystem, which is, very akin to what Always wants to do as well. So I feel like there's been some great content here. So maybe we'll do 2 more questions, and then we can sort of go through and parse through what you guys, if there's things you want to add to certain questions, and go from there.
Sure. But
I'd love to know, like, obviously both of you are now in very unconventional, you come from unconventional backgrounds. I'm sure if you'd asked, Jarrid or Christie 5 years ago, if you'd be a founder of a pet insurance company, if you'd be a VC at a diverse fund, you'd probably like, no, you're playing.
No way.
So I would love to know, what advice would you give to your younger self if you had the chance to meet them? If we figure out time travel someday.
Oy, Jarrid, you go first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely be open-minded, right? Like, I'm someone who has a control thing. Like, I think Christie does too. Like,
Definitely.
And I've always wanted to just control my own fate. Like, there's things you can control, some things you can't. But like, trying to get into the top schools, doing well, trying to get a good job, trying to control my financial trajectory, like, all that stuff has been very important to me. And I was on that path, and then Harlem Capital smacked me in the face, right? Like, it started out as something for fun, and then it just turned into a platform that I couldn't ignore. Like, I tried to work around it. Like, obviously I used to my advantage, but there was a point in time where, like, it just made more sense than anything I did. And the opportunity was so great, and the potential for impact on the world was so great that I had no choice but to do it. So I would have told my younger self to be more open-minded. And one thing I didn't realize is, as a first-time VC or as a first-time founder, your track record is limited. So people are only betting on you and your strategy. And what they can use as a proxy for that is their relationship with you beforehand. So, like, I was not intentional about building or maintaining relationships, because on my path, like, it didn't matter. But now I have a much more open worldview. So one thing that I'll say to anyone is to take a just-in-case rather than a just-in-time approach to networking. Just in case is like reaching out to someone when you need something, right? Which sometimes works and sometimes you can't avoid, but it's not the best way long-term to put yourself in a position to succeed. Just in case, though, means that you're always meeting folks, you're telling your story, you're talking about your dreams, what you want to do, you're open-minded, saying, hey, like, hopefully we can help each other now. If not, maybe in the future. Either way, I want to get to know you and just respect what you do and what I can learn from you. And if you do that and put, good into the ecosystem, is going to come back to you over and over again in ways you can't even imagine. So fortunately, like my business partners did that better than I did. And now I can kind of like make up for lost time. But once I had that change in worldview, it just opens up our eyes. And so especially in entrepreneurship where you just need people, it's so helpful to do that. So that's the advice I would have for my younger self or anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely taking that. I think, especially VC, such a I think it's one of the few industries where reputation is so important, and your EQ. I think, yes, I think having the acumen, having the knowledge will only get you so far, but I think the best investors are the ones that know people and know how to like keep those relationships. So yeah, I think maybe they should have a class on that somewhere in school, because I think it would save people a lot of trouble. Yeah, but how about you, Christie?
So I think mine would be to like trust my instincts, and across the board. One thing that you find very early on, and maybe this is just my experience, I suspect that this is the experience of every woman and probably any person of color who's trying to fundraise or start a company, is that you will, like 90% of the people that you talk to will think that they know something better than you do, or will give you advice and tell you you're doing it wrong and you should do it this way, or, don't start. Someone once literally told me, don't start that company, come work for my company. And like, you get all of this unsolicited advice, and it's so tempting being a first-time founder. I mean, I was not even in the startup world. I was coming from finance and insurance. So like startup and tech and all of this was so new to me. I was constantly like second guessing things that I was doing. Like, who do I need to hire? Like, should I even do this? Is this even worth it? Can I handle this? I had one terrible investor ask me if I was emotionally ready to start a company. And I was like, buddy, you don't even know me. Like, get over here. And I think, I ultimately, obviously, I ended up ignoring a lot of it, and it all worked out. But I wasted way more time and energy dealing with that and sort of reading between the lines and trying to like reconcile those perspectives with my instinct and what I knew I was capable of. And, if I did it all again, I would just like completely block it out or not even take those meetings. Like, at the end of the day, it's your company. You're spending your blood, sweat, and tears on this company. And if you think it's going the right way and you're making the right decisions, then just believe in yourself and go all in. Because the second you start to second guess yourself, like everybody else is out there second guessing you, you don't have time to second guess yourself. It's just exhausting. And once I sort of like snapped out of that, it's been a lot easier. But in the early days, it's really hard to psych yourself into that sort of mentality.
Yeah, that's super insightful. I mean, trusting your gut can get you so far, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's almost like anytime that decision comes to fruition, you're like, there it is,
Yeah.
So obviously, I love ending on a fun note. I think it's really cool hearing about, you guys. I just want to like learn a little bit more about you. So I'm gonna paint a scenario.
Okay.
So New York is a busy place. We all know the 4-5 train has probably burned us to some extent. So I would love to know if, let's say, you guys are meeting each other up for a coffee or a chat. What would you, or what coffee, like what to-go coffee order would you get for the other person? So Christie, you would answer for Jarrid, and then Jarrid, you would answer for Christie. I just think it's always nice to end on a fun question. So.
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah, go.
I would get an espresso for Christie, because I think she's all about efficiency. And I think she would appreciate just having something that she can like take down, get back to work on. And so hopefully we could enjoy it, but I think she would be kind of an in and out type person for coffee. So that's where I would lean to for her.
Nice. Christie, is he on the money or?
It's pretty good. Yeah. I am very efficient. I'm very New York in that sense.
Love that.
I'd probably do like one of those like red eyes for Jarrid, like the coffee with the shot of espresso. First of all, because he's got a young child at home, so he probably didn't sleep the night before. And he's always up until like 1 a.m. working anyways. And he just like goes all in on things, like just digs in, like puts his heart into things and hustles every day. And so it's a terrible tasting beverage, but hopefully it'll get the job done.
I love these answers. I thought you guys were like,
yeah. I like it.
Was I close, Jarrid? Would you ever drink?
You're pretty close.
because they're
That's
nasty,
so.
though.
I mean, I thought you guys definitely like. Again, this goes to show how extraordinary you guys are. You guys took a simple, fun question. You're like brought out this, metaphorical like insight into your personalities. Like I thought it was like, oh, a double shot of espresso, but it's like a double shot because he's so insightful. Like, yeah. So, I mean, now I understand why this makes sense. So, I'm just gonna stop recording so we have a clean